Acharyaji.
Om Sadashiva-Samarambham
Shankaracharya-madhyamam
Asmadacharya-Paryantam Vande Guru-Paramparam. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karvavahai Yasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahay. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat. Om Namah Shivaya. So we are on the Shikshavali of Taitriya Upanishad on the Anuvaka number 11, the last few lines. Right? If you are looking at the Mantra Pushpam book, then it is on page 22 under the 21st para. So that we will chant. Please unmute yourself. That one last line. अथ यदि ते कर्म विचिकित्सा वा वृत्तविचिकित्सा वा स्यात् You need to chant, okay? Because if you don't chant, you will never remember. I know that you guys are not chanting regularly, but it's a great thing to, when you're studying the Upanishad, you should at least once or twice a week, you should look at the mantra book and then chant to yourself, even if nobody hears. That is the only way the mantra will stay in your mind. That's why chanting is very important. In the old days, without having, committed the chanting to memory, you were not even taught. Because we are not doing all that. I'm just saying it's a very important point. Okay. So I would request you to at least chant regularly in your house. So here, a very important point is raised. So Shruti has given a lot of, what do you call, rules, right? But society changes. Those Astrika rules were in a particular environment, in a particular situation, in a particular time frame. And what do you do when that entire environment changes? Are those rules again relevant? Right? So, for example, if you are shifted to, let us say, UK, to England, you have shifted. What is Brahma Muhurta time? Is it the Brahma Muhurta time in India, or is it the Brahma Muhurta time in UK? Or if you are in, let us say, Germany, which is the river in which the Shraddha ritual is to be done? Such small things. Because the environment is shifted, and therefore it is not possible for you to apply the same rules. And such details will obviously not be discussed in Shastra, because Shastra is not going to envisage every possible situation. Therefore, the guidelines which we are seeing, they are basically broad guidelines. They have to be intelligently applied. We have to extract the meaning, and we have to apply it to whichever situation is facing us. So this particular idea of an appropriate interpretation, which will give you what? The essence of the text. So that is the whole idea. What is the essential idea being conveyed by Veda? The Tatparyam, whatever interpretation you give, that Tatparyam should not be disturbed. Okay. And therefore he says, Atha, now, yadi te karma vichikitsa. Vichikitsa means some sort of doubt. So yadi te karma vichikitsa, if there are some doubts about the karmas, about the rituals. Okay. Now, you can have doubts about the Shastric karma. You can have doubts about the Laukika karma also. Both you can have. Right? It's not that it is only Shastric karma that there will be doubts. What should you do? So he says, Atha evam vartamanasya. Go to a person in whom you know, who is a live person, okay, who's alive and living, who's following the Vedic rules, the Vidhi Nisheda rules he follows. And with regard to the rituals, so with regard to Shrauta rituals and Smarta rituals. What is Shrauta rituals?
Those
As per Shruti.
prescribed in the Shruti.
In the Shruti. And Smarta is
Those prescribed in Smritis.
Smriti. Right. So in case of Shrauta Smarta Samshayam, you have doubts about the karma in which have been laid down in the Shrauta, in the Shruti or in the Smriti. And he gives another idea also. Supposing it is not that you have doubts about the karma, supposing you have doubts about how to behave in society. Vritta Vachikitsa. Vritteva. The Vritta is function, behavior. So the Achara Lakshanam, the social behavior. How do you behave with people? Right? So what do you do? Do you cover your head if you're a girl? Because that was done in the old days. Do you do it now also? You know? Do you touch the feet of your husband in the morning? Or does your husband make tea for you? All these are vritta vichikitsa. How should I behave? Because they are not mentioned in the karma kand. So what should you do? Te tatra brahmanaha sammarshinaha. So te, you go to a brahmana, ye brahmana. So brahmana is what? A shishta. Shishta means a person who is well versed in the Vedas. So here brahmana means guna brahmana. Okay, not jati brahmana, because we are looking at guna brahmanas. So look for those person who are very sattvic in nature and therefore they are following the mandate of Shruti and Smriti. So elderly respected persons in English who are familiar with these scriptures. So the Veda is saying, go to such a Brahmana. And what kind of Brahmana is he? Sammarshinaha. Sammarshinaha means person who is capable of analyzing the Shruti and Smriti Vakyam and more importantly, capable of applying that analysis. In the sense, he has arrived at the Tatparyam, the very essence. What is the essential meaning being conveyed by those Vakyams? He has understood. And he has the brains and the capacity to be able to apply them to changing times. To the modern environment, he applies those particular instructions, not literally, but the essence, the Tatparyam is not broken. And where should he be? So Shankaracharya says Tatra means Tasmin Deshe Kaleva. At the time and the place where you are. And such a person we call Shishta. So you should go to him. And not only should he be capable of analyzing, applying, he should be Yukta Ayuktaha. So Yukta means he is committed to practicing the Shruti and Smriti rituals. And Ayukta is basically, if you look in the dictionary, no, you will not find that word. It is Chandasa Prayoga, Vedic usage. For the word Ayuktaha. Ayuktaha is, Shankara defines as Apara Prayuktaha, means not influenced by other considerations, not influenced by non-Vedic considerations. So his entire approach to life is that Shruti says something, and I have to understand the Tatparyam of the Shruti and the environment in which the Shruti was saying these things is no longer available. So I have to modify that and apply it to the fresh environment without, of course, uh, disturbing the essence of the instructions. And then aluksha dharma kama syuhu. Oh, we have not chanted that, right? So we'll just chant that. So let's look at the next part of the mantra. We will just look at that last para and we will chant. ये तत्र ब्राह्मणाः संस्मर्शिनः
ये
ये
तत्र
तत्र
ब्राह्मणाः
ब्राह्मणाः समर्षिणः
समदर्शिनः
युक्ता आयुक्ताः
युक्ता
युक्ता
आयुक्ताः
आयुक्ताः
अलूक्षाधर्मकामाः स्युः
अलुक्षा
अलूक्षाधर्मकामाः
धर्मकामाः
स्युः
स्युः
यथा ते तत्र वर्तेरन्
यथा
यथा
ते
ते तत्र
वर्तेरन्
वर्तेरन्
तथा तत्र वर्तेथाः
तथा
तथा
तत्र
तत्र
वर्तेथाः
वर्तेथाः
तथाभ्यः ख्यातेषु
तथाभ्यः
अथाभ्यः
ख्यातेषु
ख्यातेषु
ये तत्र ब्रह्मणाः समर्शिनः
ये
ये
तत्र
तत्र
ब्राह्मणाः
संवर्षिणः
युक्ता आयुक्ताः
युक्ता
युक्ता
आयुक्ताः
आयुक्ताः
अलूक्षाधर्मकामाः स्युः
अलुक्षा
अलूक्षाधर्मकामाः
धर्मकामाः
स्युः
स्युः
यथा ते तेषु वर्तेरन्
यथा
यथा ते
तेषु
तत्र
वर्तेरन्
वर्तेरन्
तथा तेषु वर्तेथाः
तथा
तथा
तेषु
तेषु
वर्तेथाः
वर्तेथाः
एष आदेशः
एष
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 आदेशः
आदेशः
एष उपदेशः
एष
एष
उपदेशः
उपदेशः
एषा वेदोपनिषत्
एषा
एषा
वेदोपनिषत्
वेदोपनिषत्
एतत् अनुशासनम्
एतदनुशासनम्
एतदनुशासनम्
एवम् उपासितव्यम्
एवम्
एवम्
उपासितव्यम्
उपासितव्यम्
एवम् ऊचैतदुपास्यम्
एवम्
एवम्
एतदुपास्यम्
उचैतदुपास्यम्
So we had looked at Ayukta. Next one is Aluksha Dharma Kama Syuhu. Aluksha is again Vedic usage, Chandasa Prayoga. The real word is Arukshaha. Arukshaha means people who are not rigid. So Shankara says Akrura Matayaha. People who are not rigidly bound in their thinking processes. So they are flexible. People who can apply the rules which have been put in a particular environment to today's environment. And therefore, thinking process is flexible. For example, there's a rule which says that you should have your early morning bath in the river. Now, if you are 75 years old and sitting in Uttarkashi, is that a feasible thing? Maybe feasible. I'm not saying for everybody. For some people, it's not feasible because you'll fall sick, right? Especially if it's December. And therefore, that rule has to be appropriately understood. You can take the water from the river and then go put it in the house, warm it up, and then take it, if that is to be done. So, appropriate application of those rules. And then, dharma kama syuhu. So, dharma kamaha. They consider that dharma is a very important purushartha, and they are people. Shankara says they are people who have understood the importance of adrishta punyam and papa. So he gives the word adrishtarthinaha. Those who know what is adrishta punyam, those who know what is adrishta papam, and those who know what is the role of this in your spiritual progress. Such a person is a wise man. He is the person who have to go. And not only that, there's a very important word over here, akamahataha. They are free from desires for material wealth, right? In fact, the Brahmanas originally, they are not supposed to be wealthy. They are supposed to live a life of voluntary poverty. Why? Because if you have almost nothing, then you don't have the fear of losing anything, right? So that's very important over here. That's what this wise person is going to be. And then what should you do? Yatha te tatra varteram. In yatha, in whichever manner, tatte tatra varteram, those people conduct themselves. Tatha tatra vartethaha. In that manner also, you should conduct yourself. Right? And again, there's a very important rule. Once this Brahmana, this wise person who is familiar with the scriptures, who has the intelligence to apply it to modern circumstances, and who is not influenced by extraneous factors, neither by money nor by any pressure. That person, once he gives you interpretation, you should ensure that you follow. So that's one rule in the scripture. That once you go to a wise person, having accepted him as a jnani, once he gives an interpretation, you cannot question it. You should not question it, and you should follow it. So once he has given that, that's what he says. Yatha te tatra vartera. In whatever manner they are conducting themselves, tatha tatra vartethaha. You should also do the same thing. And then atha abhyakhyata abhyakhyateshu. Now, abhyakhyata, it's a word, okay? So, supposing a person is accused of something, of a crime, of some corruption, whatever, but the charges have not been proved. So, in today's language, the person who is in court, who is the accused, but the proceedings are going on, and until the proceedings are complete, what is his status, guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty.
Not guilty. So it's a accepted provision of today's laws, right? And this was there in those days also. So person who has been accused of some, let us say, and in this case, since it is a wise person, some respected member of society, let us say somebody has brought up charges of some immoral activity against him, but charges have not been proved. Such a person is called abhyakhyata. Abhyakhyata. So abhyakhyateshu. Towards such people also, which people? People who are otherwise wise people following Vedic instructions, but have been accused of wrongdoing, but that wrongdoing has not been proved, you should still consider them as shishtaha, wise people. Ignore the accusations. The accusation is not proved, so you ignore them. And therefore, ye tatra brahmanaha samarshanaha Yukta ayukta is being repeated. Anuksha dharma kama syuhu yatha te teshu varteran tatha teshu vartetha. Instructions are being repeated. And therefore, one must behave exactly as instructed earlier. Do what the shishtas are doing. Continue to associate with the shishtas and and follow the instructions. And then esha adeshaha, esha upadeshaha, esha veda upanishat एतत् अनुशासनम् एवम् उपासितव्यम् एवं चैतत् उपास्यम्. So, Esha Adeshaha means this is the Vidhi. These are the instructions given in the Sikshavali, and especially in this Anuvaka which we are seeing, the 11th Anuvaka. They are the Vidhi. They are the commandments of the Veda, what we have seen, what we have been talking about as Vihita Karma, Niyata Karma, Nitya Karma. All these are the commandments here. Most of it is the 11th Anuvaka. And then there is a Esha Upadeshaha also. So what is the difference between Adesha and Upadeshaha? So on the face of it, it seems to be the same, right? The word meaning is instruction. And you can say Upadesha is advice. You can say Adesha is instructions. But that is not the distinction brought out here. Shankara says Upadeshaha has to be taken as instructions given by Pitradivaya, your fathers, grandfathers, mothers, acharyas, etc., to children as shishyas. Right? And there is, therefore, this adeshaha has to be taken as instructions of Shruti and Smriti. It falls under Vidhi. While Upadesha has to be taken as instructions of the wise people, fathers, mothers, acharyas. This is the small distinction. Note that there are varying interpretations. Okay, there's one acharya called Sayana Acharya, very, very famous acharya who has been commenting on this Upanishad also. And he says that when you take Upadesha as instructions of your acharyas or your father, mother, or parents or grandparents, remember that the elders, all the elders, including acharyas, they give instructions based on Shruti only. If they give instructions which are not based on Shruti, those don't fall under this particular category. And the instructions of Shruti, when repeated by somebody else, what do they fall under? Which category do they fall under?
Upadesha.
Think. The whole thing is meant to make you think. Sorry?
Instructions of Shruti, when like we get instructions of the Shruti from you, so they are Adesha for us, because otherwise how we are not going to read it on our own.
No, I want to say this. Shruti instructions are, for example, given in Mahabharata also. Mahabharata
Acharya, I couldn't
instruction.
hear you.
Beg your pardon?
I couldn't make out what you said.
I am saying Shruti gives certain instructions.
Ji,
Vidhi. That is called Adesha.
ji.
There are other texts which give the same instructions. So they are based on Shruti.
So that's the Smriti instruction.
Exactly. That is the thinking process you would take. Since instructions of the Shruti, when appearing in other text or given by somebody else, remember any other text is always somebody else's instruction, right? Mahabharata has whose instructions? Shruti's instructions. But brought to you by whom?
Yeah.
By
Vyasacharya.
Vyasacharya. I hope you remember, okay? Mahabharata is Vyasacharya. So Shruti instructions are being given by Vyasacharya to you. Brought to you by Vyasacharya. That's also Smriti. Instead of Vyasacharya, if your father is doing it, that's also Smriti. If your Acharya is doing it, that's also Smriti. So this is Sayanacharya's interpretation. So very neat distinction here. Adeshaha means Shruti Vidihi. Upadeshaha means Smarta Vidihi. Okay, these are all different interpretations. But remember the Sayanacharya's instructions are exactly what I've given said earlier. That Shankara says that Upadesha has to be taken as fathers, mothers, acharyas who are given the instructions to the children or sishyas. Sayanacharya has only expanded it, giving the rationale, saying that since these people, these wise people, fathers, mothers, acharyas, they would give instructions only based on Shruti, their instructions is actually Smriti. So there's no difference in the opinions. And Esha Veda Upanishataha. So Veda Upanishad means these are the essential instructions of the Veda Purva, also known as Dharma Shastra, which basically is Vidhi Nishedaha. And this we saw in the Bhagavad Gita, 16th chapter. What is that? Or we'll see tomorrow, today afterwards, at 8 o'clock. What is that instruction? In an hour from now, we are going to do the 16th chapter, last few verses. So we'll see that also. What are they?
Yatha Shastram Vidhanoktam, something like that.
Tasmat Shastram Pramanam Te Karya Akarya Vyavasthito. Therefore, go by Shastric instructions only. Karya should be done. Akarya should not be done. The same thing which is saying within Nishedaha. Etat Anushasanam. These are the instructions. And what instructions are these? Shankara says Anushasanam should be taken as Ishvara Vachanam, the Lord's words. Shankara again in his commentary is coming back, pointing out that Vedic commandments are those of Ishvara only. Remember that Shankara, in spite of being a staunch Vedantin, never forgets Saguna Ishvara is very important. Because without Saguna Ishvara, nothing is possible. The universe itself is not possible. no teaching is possible, our life is not possible. And therefore, in every interpretation, most Advaitic interpretation, this background we should never forget. Saguna Ishvara's background is there for us to come to Advaita. So he says, Anushashanam, the instructions are basically Ishvara Vasanam, Lord's words only. So Veda is Apaurushaya, not from human hands, human mouths. So it is Pramanam, of course, as valid as my own eyes and ears, because what I see through my eyes cannot be disproved by any other Pramanam. What Veda says also cannot be disproved by any other Pramanam. Okay. Then Evam Upasitavyam. So all these disciplines, so Upasitavyam here is to be taken as should be implemented, not a Upasana. Sarvam Upasitavyam is to be taken as Sarvam Kartavyam. All these disciplines should be followed. Evam Chaitat Upasyam. So that word is broken into Evam U. There's a U over there, right? Evam U Cha Etat Upasyam. And the U and the Cha are for emphasis, particles for emphasis. Upasyam Evam means you should follow. And normally Upasyam means Upasana. But Shankara says you should note that Upasyam means meditate, Kartavyam over here. Therefore, evam u cha etat kartavyam. In this manner only you should follow. Na anupasyam. This should never be given up. And what is the repetition for? Is the purpose for? The repetition is for the purpose of emphasizing. Okay, with this, the 11th Anuvaka is over. Now, before going on to the next Anuvaka, which is actually Shanti Pata, the last Shanti Pata, I will look at something, a discussion which Shankara enters into in the Bhashyam on the Taittiriya Upanishad at the end of the 11th Anuvaka. It's a very, very important discussion, a very elaborate one. So he is saying here that the concept of moksha as a goal is a fallacy. You can never have a concept of moksha as something to be achieved, right? And his purpose in this discussion is to point out that moksha is already achieved. It's a siddha vastu. He says, of course, it is necessary that in the beginning of every teaching, for a beginner, of course, it is necessary to say that moksha is a destination. So, sadhya moksha. Sadhya moksha is the very reason why you become a karma yogi, because there is something to look forward. First, I will get chitta shuddhi, then I will come to jnanam and all those, that whole series, right? So, for a karma yogi, at the very beginning of your spiritual career, you have moksha as sadhya moksha. That is the something to be achieved. It's a goal which will come in time after you complete all the disciplines. But when you come to jnana yoga, that sadhya moksha idea has to be given up. Right? It has to be converted into siddha moksha that I was always free. And that is why that's very important discussion. So he says for the understanding of the person who is a viveki, we should know what is the role of karma and jnana in the process of moksha. Karma and jnana both have a role. And Shankara examines five options. He gives five different options and examines them. So the first one is, I'll give you the Sanskrit word also which he uses, Sanskrit sentence which he uses. He says, Kim karmebhya eva kevalebhya param shrayaha. You can understand? Can, Kim, can, kevalebhya karmebhya, only karma, param shreyaha, give you moksha. Kevalabhya means independently. So, can karma give you moksha? Is one question. The first thing which he examines. But remember that whenever we say karma here, it is only the Vaidika karma. It is not brushing your teeth or going to play tennis, right? It is the Vaidika karma, which are the rituals which are mandated in karma kanda. So can karma independently give you moksha? Independently is very important. Kevalebhya karmebhya. That's first. Then, or uta vidya samvya pekshabhya can it give you moksha? Karmebhya param shreya. So can vidya samvyapekshebhya enhanced or supported. So uta means or vidya samvyapekshebhya. Vidya means knowledge over here. Jnanam. Jnanam supported by karma. Can it give you moksha? So we have seen this earlier as karma pradhana chaya. The mixture of karma and jnanam where karma is dominant. Can that give you moksha? Right. Can karma backed by jnana? So karma is important over here. Then or vidya karma bhyam samhata bhyam param shreyaha. Or you combine jnanam and karma, but they are samapradhanam. They are equal. So the second one was karma pradhana samuchaya. The combination of karma and jnanam, where karma is predominant. The third one is the combination of karma and jnanam, where both carry equal weights. Karma and jnanam are also weights. The fourth one you can guess. What should it be?
Jnanam
Jnana
pradhamana.
Pradhana.
Jnana pradhana karma. Right? Vidhyaya ya karma pekshaya, where they are combined, but jnanam is pradhanam and karma is supportive. So jnana pradhana samuchaya. So the first is kevala karma, second is karma pradhana samuchaya, third one is sama pradhana samuchaya, fourth one is jnana pradhana samuchaya, and the last one is obvious. What is that? Kevala jnana. See, these are the five things, right? Okay. Now, in this discussion, what is the topic? It is moksha. What is the doubt? Which of these five is required for moksha? So, Purvapakshi says that Kevala karma is adequate to give moksha. Only karma is sufficient to give moksha. So, this Purvapakshi is a person who has studied Vedanta also. That means he has studied the Veda, both the Veda Purvabhaga and the Veda Jnana. Jnana Bhaga he has studied. Vedanta is also studied. So, he says that you have to study both. Shastra says you have to study both Veda Purva and Vedanta also to qualify for moksha, right? Therefore, since you have to study Veda Purva to qualify, therefore it is proved, he says, that karma alone gives moksha. He says jnanam is important, right? It's a very, very nice argument. He says jnanam is definitely important. Vedanta is definitely important. The jnana kanda is definitely important. But jnanam is not for getting moksha. Jnanam is to make you understand that you should have karma yogyata. Therefore, you should be qualified for karma, not jnana yogyata. Jnanam is meant to make sure that you are qualified to do karma, and it is karma alone that gives you moksha. This is his particular outlook. And he says, he quotes Manusmriti. For those who are interested, it is Manusmriti chapter 2, verse 165. He says every Vaidika should study the entire Veda along with the secret part of Veda, Rahasya, he should study. And the study of the Veda should be along with the meaning of the Upanishad, Atmajnanam, etc. And he says Atma Jnanam actually makes you eligible for marriage. Right? It's a very involved argument.
That's quite funny.
He says the very purpose of Atma Jnanam is to make you eligible for marriage. Why? It's not illogical. He has given a logic. What is the purpose of marriage in your shastra, in your whole environment, Hindu environment? What is the purpose of marriage?
Raji.
He told that only
Agnihotra.
with the wife, along with the Dharam Patni, can perform the
Yes,
ritual.
because unless you are a grahastha, you cannot do Vedic karma. You see, Vedic karma, therefore, is to do Vedic karma, to do Agnihotram, to do Sandhya Vandanam, you have to be married. And if you have to get married, you have to have a wife because she has to be there for every ritual. The lady is the one who gives the permission for the ritual to start. And therefore, unless you have a wife, you can't do Vedic karma. And if you cannot do Vedic karma, how can you get moksha? That is the argument. Okay. And therefore, he says, the Shastra clearly shows what that Atma Jnana qualifies you for marriage. Marriage qualifies you to do Vedic karma, and therefore, Vedic karma alone can give moksha. Because if karma cannot give moksha, then Veda is meaningless. Is it not? Because karma kanda is part of Veda. And you cannot say that part of Veda is meaningless and part is not. So if karma cannot give you moksha, then karma kanda is meaningless, which means entire Veda is meaningless. Okay. Can you refute that? Think of a way to refute his argument. See?
Om sir.
Yeah.
Om Acharya. Karma is finite. How does it
And
give us moksha, which is infinite?
very good. That's exactly what Shankara says. He says this view cannot be accepted because moksha is nityam and karma is anityam. How can anitya karma, in this case, it is a karana, right? If you say that karma is the cause of moksha, or karma gives moksha, then karma is the karanam and moksha is the karyam. Therefore, Shankara says that a nitya karyam cannot be produced by anitya karyam. A finite cause cannot give you infinite result. And every darsana accepts both these ideas that karma is finite and moksha is infinite. Right? And not only that, logically also says Shankara, this is correct. Because karma phalam is anitya, is supported by logic. Because no phalam ever lasts forever. And supported by anubhava also. You know that nothing lasts forever. And Shankara says, therefore, it is true that the student has to study both Purva Veda and Vedanta. And therefore, of course, he will have Atmagyan. But he says that the word Vidwan, the one who has knowledge, can refer to two types of Atmagyanis. Because Atmagyanam is of two types. One is the Samanya Jnanam, the Jnanam gained in Brahmacharya ashram because of your study, because of the general Vedic instructions which your guru has imparted to you. Therefore, enquiry which you do in Brahmacharya ashram is called Samanya Vichara, and therefore it is called Samanya Brahmagyanam, which otherwise we call Paroksha Jnanam. What is Paroksha Jnanam of Brahman?
When you tell me, when the Acharya tells me about Brahman and I understand that it exists as an object.
Yes. So for you, Brahman exists as an object. And that is what is the knowledge gained in Brahmacharya Ashram. So Anandagiri specifically in his commentary says it is Paroksha Jnana. So therefore, this Paroksha Jnanam is for teaching the Brahmachari that the teaching of a Brahman is available in the Shastra, that there is such a Brahman. And then what should you do? He should acquire sadhana chatushta sampatti. For that, he has to do Vaidika karma. For that, he has to enter Grahastha ashram. And after entering Grahastha ashram and getting adequate sadhana chatushta sampatti, then he should enter into a second enquiry. So the first one is what? Samanya Vichara, general enquiry. The second one is a Vishesha enquiry, a special enquiry which he would do after his Grahastha ashram days. Whether he is in the Vanaprastha ashram or in Sannyasa ashram, either literally or figuratively he can be there. But the second Vishesha enquiry, second specific enquiry, will grant him aparoksha jnana. And this specific enquiry should include Shravanam is already done. But this specific inquiry should include Shravanam, Mananam, and Nididhyasanam. And the net result of the inquiry is not that there is a Brahman. It is definitely there is a Brahman. But additionally, he will say that Brahman I am. Aham Brahma Asmi. That is Aparoksha Jnana. And therefore, Shankara says that the argument of this Purva Pakshi, that a person who has got Vedantic knowledge has to later get married and do karma to obtain moksha, that is not correct. And though Shankara quotes the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, which gives instructions, Atma va are drishtavya, shrotavya, mantavya, nididhyasatavya. If you want to understand the Atma, if you want to understand that you are Atma, this is the Shruti Vidhi. Brihadaranyaka chapter 2.4.5. Are drashtavya, Atma va are drashtavya. If you want to understand that you are the Atma. Shrotavya, mantavya, nididhyasatavya. Shruti Vidhi for Shravanam, Mananam, nididhyasanam. And Shankara adds in his commentary that it is prasiddha, well known, that the jnanam obtained through Mananam and nididhyasanam after Shravanam has a qualitative difference from the jnanam obtained through Shravanam alone. Therefore, sadhana of Mananam and nididhyasanam is different from sadhana only Shravana. I hope you are following. Very, very important discussion. That's why we are going on to it. Now, there should be a question. If the objective of Shravanam, Maranam, and Nididhyasanam is only one, what is that? Understanding that Jiva and Paramatma are not different. Is it not? When you do Shravanam, that is the objective. Jiva, Paramatma, Aikyam should be understood. When you do Mananam, that is the same objective. When you do Nididhyasanam, also, it is the same objective. So why should there be three different sadhana? Why should there be? Okay, let me put a small, kitchen example. You take a coconut, right? You use a hammer to break the coconut. You use a scooping knife to cut out the flesh of the coconut, and you use a mixie to grind the flesh. Why do you use three different instruments?
Depends on the substrate.
Explain.
Before you start your Vedanta journey, you are so cluttered by the worldly and the materialistic experiences that you are not capable to even absorb it. So Shravanam essentially opens up your perceptors.
Okay, I grant you that. But we need to, in our analysis, we need to be very specific. When you use three instruments to arrive at the same objective, remember that you're using three instruments because there are three different tasks to be done, which means there are three different obstacles to be removed. And we have talked about three types of obstacles. There is something called pramana asambhavana. Anybody wants to say what that is?
Acharya I think you explained it to us during Bhagavad Gita, and what I remember is that pramana asambhavana, uh, when the Acharya is teaching, I learn the Shruti statement. I learn about that fact which I didn't know earlier. I had a doubt about that. I was not aware of it earlier.
Okay, let me explain again. So there are three different obstacles. One is called pramana asambhavana. One is called a prameya asambhavana. One is called a viparita bhavana. There are three obstacles. Okay. Pramana asambhavana is the, as you said, you of course know something which you didn't know earlier. But it also applies to when I tell you something, I'm saying, or Shruti is saying that there is a Brahman and there is a Atma. Your question is there really a Brahman? There is a doubt about what Shruti is saying. Okay. Did Shruti say there is a Brahman? Did Shruti say there is an Atman? Did Shruti say that Brahman is Atman? Or did Shruti say that Atman is not Brahman? You are confused by the words of the Shruti. Shruti has given you certain things, but you are confused by its words. That is pramana asambhavana. Now, when pramana asambhavana is removed, what remains is what? There is very clear idea of what exactly Shruti is saying. So, in short, to put it very, after your Shravanam is complete, which means pramana asambhavana has been removed, you will know that Shruti says that you are Brahman. That is, you have no doubt in your mind that Shruti says that you are Atma, and Shruti says there is a Brahman, and Shruti says that Brahman is you. So, the end result of successful Shravanam is the removal of Pramana Asambhavana, which means I know for sure that Shruti says that I, the Atma, am Brahman. I am not different from Brahman. That is called Pramana Asambhavana being removed. Nivritti of Pramana Asambhavana. So during Shravanam, Pramana Asambhavana Nivritti happens. Now there can be a doubt. What is the doubt? There is no Pramana Asambhavana. Okay. So you know for a fact that Shruti says that you are Brahman. Of that, be very careful in the understanding. You have no doubts about the fact that Shruti is saying that I am Brahman. But there is a prameya asambhavana. How can I be Brahman? I know Shruti is saying that I am Brahman. But Brahman is all pervading. Brahman is formless. Brahman has no problems in life. And that doesn't, go ahead with, that doesn't gel with my description of myself. So while I am convinced that Shruti says that I am Brahman, I am not convinced that I am Brahman. Do you see the difference? You have no doubt about what Shruti says, but you are not able to accept that as related to yourself. You cannot say, I am Brahman. Shruti says I am Brahman. Yes, you accept. But you cannot say I am Brahman because of all these problems in your life. And therefore, that is called Prameya Asambhavana. To remove that, Mananam is required. Lots of Mananam is required. Mananam is probably one of the longest processes. And once you are convinced that you are Brahman, how do you convince yourself? Because you have to figure out that the mind and the body is not. Once you have understood that the consciousness principle Brahman is the lakshyartham of the word aham, I, is the implied meaning of I. You have equated yourself as consciousness. And therefore, Shruti says you are consciousness, and you say I am consciousness. So that Prameya Asambhavana has been removed. That is because of Mananam alone. Then, what is Viparita Bhavana? Remember that after Shravanam and Mananam, I have absolutely no doubts. As Shruti says, I am Brahman. I have absolutely no doubts in my mind that I am Brahman. I can claim myself as Brahman. That is the net result of Shravanam and Mananam. Then why do you need Nididhyasanam? Because there are habitual thinking processes which has come out of, which is a habit formed over not only this lifetime, hundreds of lifetimes. What are they? I am sad. Right? You feel you are sad. When you feel you are sad, or when you feel you're irritated, or when you feel you are insulted, is that compatible with your idea that I am Brahman? It is not. And yet you feel it. It's not conscious. You are not consciously saying, I am sad. You are not consciously saying, I'm irritated. Because you know you cannot say it consciously because you accepted that you are Brahman. But the subjective thinking patterns of your mind, they keep bringing in these ideas that you are incomplete. So this is called Viparita Bhavana. And during Nididhyasanam, this Viparita Bhavana has to be removed one by one. By consciously meditating on the, take one Viparita Bhavana and then consciously meditate upon all these Shruti Vakyams, Smriti Vakyams, which say that those don't belong to Brahman, which I am. And therefore it cannot possibly be belonging to me, right? And therefore Shankara says that these differences are quite well known because Shruti is using three different methods, Shravanam, Mananam, and Nididhyasanam. Since three different methods are being used, the sadhana obviously is being used for different purposes to remove different obstacles. And therefore, Kevala karma can never give independently moksha. Okay. Right. Now we have to look at the second view. What second view? Karma pradhana samuchaya. Can karma, predominant karma, with the backing of upasana or jnanam, give you moksha? Here, the Purvapakshi has said that karma can be enhanced with upasana, which is also jnana. He uses the word jnanam also. And karma backed up by this upasana gives you enhanced fruits. If phalam is better. And he gives an example. Pure karma gives Svargaloka. But karma plus upasana gives you Brahmaloka. Right? And there are other examples. They say that certain poison, it produces death. Right? And they say that, this is of Ayurveda, that curds are not good. Yogurt is not good because yogurt produces disease. So what is the result of ingesting poison? It is death. The result of ingesting curds or yogurt, illness. But he says, if you chant certain mantras while eating these two things, then the poison gets medicinal powers. It doesn't kill, it cures the disease. This example he gives. He says, therefore, the poison plus the mantra, it converts the fruit into medicinal value. He gives another example which is very common. Ayurveda uh, considers curds as harmful, right? It produces disease. But yet, when you add jaggery, good, Ayurveda says that the harmful effect of curd is removed. So two things are there. So he says in the same manner, karma plus upasana or jnanam can give moksha. So Shankara says, no, this is not correct. Because if you say something is giving moksha, if you say karma is generating moksha, you are saying that moksha is having a beginning. And there is a very well-known rule. Whatever has a beginning has to have an end. And therefore, your finite karma can definitely not be giving us an infinite moksha. Now the Purvapakshi doesn't give up. He says Veda itself says that karma jnana samuchaya will produce nitya moksha. Right? This is from Kathopanishad. If you remember the mantra, it talks about the person. The jnanam here refers to upasana. Talks about the person who does upasana along with karma, and he will go to Brahma Loka and get Krama Mukti. He says this same logic, why can you not apply it to karma jnana samuchaya? So Shankara gives a very important answer, extremely important. He says, you should never accept the words of Shruti blindly. Very, very important. Okay, Shankara himself, who is the exponent of Shruti, is saying this. Never accept Veda Vakyam blindly, because you should always check whether it is really Pramanam. Veda Vakyam is fine, but whether that Veda Vakyam is Arthapatti or Pramanam, you should check. Why? It should not be contradicted by any other Pramana. Now, saying that Veda says moksha is eternal is contradicted by what? By logic. Something which is produced can never be eternal. So, he says what you say is not true. If Veda contradicts any other Pramanam, you have to reinterpret that Vakyam. You don't discard the Vakyam. You have to reinterpret that Vakyam in such a manner that there is no contradiction between Shruti, logic, yukti, and anubhava, experience. So in any interpretation, Shruti, yukti, anubhava cannot have to be reconciled. There must be a proper reconciliation of Shruti, yukti, and anubhava. And this reconciliation is what you do when you do Maranam. Remember, what is the job of Pramanam? Pramanam reveals the nature of a thing. It's a very pertinent idea. Pramanam is Gyapaka, revealer. Pramanam cannot change the nature of a thing. Right? Pramanam can reveal fire to you. But if Pramanam says, if Veda says fire is cold, will you accept? You cannot. Because your very Anubhava, which is a Pramanam also, it contradicts the idea that fire is cold. Right? So Vedavakyam can never change the intrinsic nature of fire. what do you call swabhavika dharma of something cannot be changed by a Vedavakyam. Pramanam's only job is to reveal something as it is. So Pramanam has revealing power, but does not have modifying power. Gyapakatvam, revealing power is there, but Karakatvam, modifying power is not there. And therefore, whenever we use our Jnanendriyas, remember that Jnanendriyas have got Gyapaka, revealing power, but they don't have Karakatvam. Your Karmendriyas are the one which have got Karak. And therefore, the logical rule is what? Yat yat arabdham, whatever is big, what is produced, tat tat anityam. That is anityam. This rule cannot be violated or overcome by Vedavakyam. Therefore, no amount of Vedavakyam can reveal that the thing which is produced is Nitya. And Shankara adds, even 100 Vedavakyam cannot make moksha have a beginning. Can never tell you that moksha has a beginning. Or to make or tell you that something which has a beginning is indestructible. No amount of Vedavakyam can tell you that. Very important idea. Shankara's faith in the Vedic, in the Veda does not make him abandon logic. And therefore, very important idea.
देखा हमने नीचे फिर से वो कर दिया हाथ से ऐसे ऐसे.
And therefore, very important idea here is that in your understanding, in your study, you should never give up the intellect. So with this, we'll stop here. We're already out of time. So we will see the third view in the next class. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadav Purnamevavashyate Om Shanti 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 Om Tat Sat Om Shivaya. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you.